Hi, this is Jo, and today I'm here with Ben Madden, who is the Fine and Country representative for London. Hi Ben, how are you?
Very, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, good, thank you very much. Thank you so much for seeing me, I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Great, I've got a couple of questions I want to ask you, mainly about London, but just as a background, tell us a little bit about yourself and your estate agency history.
Okay, so I'm approaching 20 years in a estate agency.
You don't look old enough.
And let's end it there. That's perfect. That's all I needed to say.
Absolutely, thanks.
So I started at a small a small corporate, I think it's fair to say, about 20 years ago, just down the road from where we're sitting today. After a few years, as is often the case for estate agency, you move from one to another. Mm-hmm. Within a few years, I knew I wanted to do it long term, so I set up my own business about 15 years ago, a company called Thorgills. We opened in 2008, height of the recession, in this area, yes.
In the height of recession?
Yep, 2008, great timing. Actually, it worked really, really well for us. We realised, because of what 2008 was, which was a financial crisis as opposed to a recession, one leads to the other, sales market turned off overnight, and so we became a letting specialist. And that worked really, really well. For 7 years, we were a lettings agency, largest independent in London for a period of time. We diversified in sales. And then actually I exited that business last year, and now I'm fully fledged Fine and Country. We are operating across 3 territories in West London, South West London and Teddington and Hampton. And yeah, love it, really enjoy the industry. Much more about the people within the industry as opposed to the end consumer, because I'm not at the coalface as such. I've got different people that run the different businesses, and I get to work with them as opposed to our client base. But yeah, love it.
Great. And so questions now on actually what's happening in the property market. What's happening in the London market at the moment? And we'll be starting start of the year after the mini budget crisis that we had last year.
Sure. So it's, right now the 11th, 12th of January. So we've had one full, in theory, week of January in activity. I don't think it's fair, appropriate, or provides very good context to say, this is where we're at from a market perspective. But I think what we saw, so the mini budget was 16, 17 weeks ago, and that was like an electric shock hitting the market. Everyone just went on hold. And in our world, it lasted about 3 weeks, where people didn't really know how to react.
And your world is London?
Our world, my world, I commentate very regularly on what's happening in West London and South West London. I report on a weekly basis on the whole of London, above £1 million. So, we'll do that via social media and look at what activity is happening. 17 weeks ago versus 16 weeks ago was the largest reduction, a 35% reduction in increase in new properties coming to market, because the property world, the UK property market, the consumer base realised in an instant that we've had this amazing period of growth, and where all of a sudden we're in the real world now. What's happening? Financial markets are contracting, pension pots are being looked at. Okay, I don't think we're going to see any more growth, let's go to market. And so overnight there was a flood of properties to the market. Properties on market, total market above £1 million in London are down somewhere in the region of 20% versus that period immediately
now,
following.
As we start the year.
They're down right now as we start the year, but that is also, to try and give some flavour. October and November, very quiet for properties going under offer. Then there's the realisation. So the consumer always works on a lag, and that sounds horrible, but it's just a fact of life. Yeah. The consumer's not at the coalface like we are on a daily basis. We're in the news, we're reading the news, we're digesting it, and then we're applying it to what we see. The consumer's on a lag. So mini budget end of September, October, the world stops. November, there's a bit of realisation. Midway through November, the market wakes up and says, mortgage rates are here. I got a rate locked in 3 months ago that I need to explore. I need to get involved with that, because my mortgage payments are going to double if I reapply. So November, end of November, December was very, very busy for properties going under offer. And really interestingly, the first week in January, more properties under offer in the first week of January 2023 than 2022.
Ooh,
so
interesting.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. The market, it sounds ridiculous to describe it as buoyant, but there's activity, there's good things happening. The mortgage position is propping up an element of the market, the undersupply to the market, because you've had almost 3 years, 2.5 to 3 years of crazy buoyant activity. Of course, also in London, the other thing to consider is international buyers and the prime central London market, the weakness of the pound, the weakness of sterling, absolutely having an impact. There are deals to be had. American buyers, I won't say they're queuing up in our world right here, but certainly in London, there are widespread reports of internationals, specifically American buyers, anyone holding dollars, getting great deals.
Absolutely. So that leads straight on to my next question is, what do you think is going to happen in the next year or so to the property market?
So I read a really interesting piece today. In the last 50 years, property prices have only reduced in 4 years. That will blow your mind. In the last 50 years...
They've gone up for 46 years. And then
not consistently. So what you might have is 2008, the market corrected by between 13 and 14% in a year, which is quite significant. But the following year, from that 13% dip, it started to rise again. And it might have risen by 0.5%. It might have risen by 20%. Of course, it didn't rise. No market rise by 20% in a year. But the point I'm making really is that if we're in a position of correction,
which we are,
horrible language though, if a consumer is watching this, prices might reduce. That's what that means. A position of correction. We get sucked into this language. The market will soften. Yeah, I mean, in essence, there's an argument that it already has. But again, that's the other thing. While the consumer works on a lag and we're so involved and we're so invested and we're so in it on a daily basis, that what we experience, that sort of mid area of Q4, is not what we're experiencing right now. So my predictions are Q1, first 3 months of this year will be propped up by the mortgage market and those that need to do business or want to do business on the basis they've got a rate locked in. There is an undersupply to the market. There are properties coming to the market, but not in their droves. And that, politician after politician after politician has put that on the ticket to make sure they get the top gig. There's an absolute housing crisis in this country and I'm going to solve it. They will never solve it. There's no inclination to solve it because it's how they get in next time. And so that housing crisis, is absolutely fueling the market. Q2, I think you'll see something of a traditional spring market.
Okay.
So I don't
more
like
houses coming to market.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we're already talking to people that are saying, I'm thinking it didn't really happen for me the second half of last year. I think I'll give it a go in spring. And that does make sense. I understand that from a consumer's perspective, the mindset is spring is a great time to go to market. Is it going to be a great time this spring? Well, I think you could argue there'll be maybe an oversupply then in a short period of time.
From a seller's point of view, it might not be the best time to go.
If I was a seller, personally, right now, I'd be going to market yesterday.
Or next week,
because there's just simply a lack of competition if you go to market right now. There are properties out there and you will be in a modicum of competition. And will the market flood in the spring? I mean, I don't have a crystal ball, but I think there'll be more properties to market. And then would you rather race against one person or a race against 10 people? You'd rather race against one.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think property prices are reasonably solid right now. We've already seen some areas of the country and some areas of London where there's pressure on pricing. The other thing propping up London is COVID led to a lot of people moving out of London. The rural dream, let's move to the hills.
Let's move miles away from London.
Yeah, I mean, for the first time in Rightmove's history, their top 10 things people search for, one of them became a view. That had never been in the list of things people were searching for, but now they want a view. So those people that made that move 2 years ago, 3 years ago, they're exploring coming back because work from home's not the gig they thought it was.
They want to be back in, aren't they? As
well, absolutely. Yeah, there's some of that going on. And also, the 24% growth of the property they brought in rural England in the last 2 years, let's cash in and let's buy in London where the price growth has only been 9% over the last 2 years. So there's some good business to be done as well if you're astute. Second half of the year, on the assumption that inflation, what the Bank of England have done, and we start to curb some of that. Cost of living, not so much of an issue in the middle of summer when we're not paying for as much gas and there's not as much heating. So assuming there's some positivity around people's lives, I think the second half of the year will be reasonably positive, but I don't have a crystal ball.
Yeah,
I don't know for sure.
But the big question is that although we are seeing a price correction, it's not what the media is saying. We are not losing 30 to 40% on the value of our properties, are we?
No, it's I like the one where you've got the economists that state we're going to see a 20 to 30% drop because an economist is a professional, right? And they're sensible people, but they just want their 5 minutes in the media, don't they? If I make a really big, chunky, scary claim and I've got plenty of letters after my name, I'll get my 5 minutes in the media. So the truth is, no, I haven't made a prediction around what pricing will do. The issue I have with so many predictions that get made is I don't like averages. Yeah. So a national housing market for me is is a fugazi, it's a fugazi. There's no such thing as a national housing market. A 3-bedroom house in Newcastle that sells for £120,000 has no relevance to a 5-bedroom house in Chiswick that sells for 4 million. They are different worlds.
Yeah.
So how can we possibly report on them collectively? I think micro markets, London is a micro market, but actually feels macro, and the micro markets within London will all behave differently. Different property types will behave differently. Post-COVID, 6 months post-COVID, nobody wanted to buy an apartment. Everyone was trying to sell their apartments because they wanted outside space. And so all these, these small things have a huge impact, make it difficult, I think, to predict. It's about timing, it's about needs versus wants. If you feel like you're going to want to, or you need to move in the next 2 years, my advice is sooner rather than later makes sense.
That was my last question.
Sorry,
What's
am I
your
preempting?
advice? That's okay. What advice do you have for people coming to market and buying as well?
So, yeah, exactly as I was saying, if I needed to sell in the next couple of years, I would be getting on with it now, because I think we're at a point where you say pricing, it's very difficult to make the argument that prices are going to increase in the next 2 years.
Yeah, fair point.
It's far easier to make the argument that prices might reduce. Actually, I think a lot of areas are going to see stagnation and maybe a little bit of a dip.
A bit of flatlining.
Yeah, I think so. I think there's going to be, with the lack of supply, demand will keep it propped up, and you won't lose. You won't see a lot of loss, but you will. You're not going to see any records set, I think it's fair to say. So if I needed to move in the next couple of years, I'd be thinking about, can we do that quickly? If I wanted to move, then I just would. And there's sometimes I think there's an overcomplication around moving. I want to get the best deal. Every buyer wants to buy at the lowest price. Every seller wants to sell at the highest price.
Yeah, they do.
At some point, you've just got to say, I love it. I want it. I'm taking it.
Yeah.
And so, as I just said, 46 years out of 50, property prices have increased. So if you buy in the 1 year where property prices decrease, don't worry. You've got another,
50 years of 46 years.
You've got another, you've got a lot of growth ahead of you.
Absolutely.
My advice to buyers is, if you see something you love, go for it right now. If you want to hold out for that great deal, you're going to fall into a category of people that are trying to do a great deal. There's more of them than there are that are just going to get on with it. So once the property price, let's just assume price is reduced by 5% over the next year to two. Once they get to that point, demand goes up, demand increases, more people want to buy it, you're in competition, and then the price goes back up. And so everyone's looking for a win, and I would say if you're comfortable, if you like something, if you want it, if you love it, if it feels right, just go for it. I think people overcomplicate property. It's very rare you don't do well in bricks and mortar. If
you stick at it for a little bit longer. So so it's not going to make a difference. You're saying buy now because you need to buy, want to buy, whatever reasons there are, and in 10 years' time it's going to make no difference.
Yeah, I guess you've got to think about the different categories. So if I'm a first-time buyer and I really want to get on the ladder, I have to work out whether an increased mortgage or a reduction in price makes the most sense. Yeah. So if property prices come down by 5% in the next 2 years, well, I should wait because I can save 5%. Yeah. But mortgage rates are on the up, so you're going to be paying more on your mortgage. So in which area are you better off? It's about running a basic calculation, but it's also about, I can't live with mum and dad anymore, or I'm sick and tired of paying rent, because rents are going up by 10% at the moment. And actually, pay your own mortgage rather than somebody else's with a 10% increase in the rent. So downsizers always do well in this sort of market. Also, you've got cost of living impacting people's, those people that own larger properties that need to reduce their overheads. Yeah. So there's lots of reasons why it makes logical sense, but follow your heart when it comes to property, and ask an expert to make sure your heart's not leaning down the wrong road. Yeah. Thank you so much, Ben. You've been really informative. Really appreciate it. You're welcome.